Welcome back to the K-Cup. I'm your host, Joe Nortrup, and I am here with founder and CEO, Jon Kelly. We got a great show for you this week. We're going to talk about what makes a great subcontractor. So every general contractor knows how important subcontractors are to the success of a project. And there's a lot of layers to it, and many people may not realize just really what a involved and complicated relationship it is between the general contractor and all the subs on a project, because there are so many layers to it. So we're going to discuss those layers today, and hopefully if you're a subcontractor watching this, you can gain some insight into the point of view of a general contractor and how we see things. And then even if you're not a subcontractor, if you're an architect or developer, investor, whatever, and you're watching this, you're going to get some insight into the interplay between how subcontractors, interplay or interact with the general contractor in a project, and really how all those pieces really have to work together in what really is, kind of a intricate dance, you might call it. So we know that I guess we got to go all the way back to the beginning. This relationship really starts, at the quoting stage, when we're requesting quotes for bids that we're going to submit to win projects.
Yeah.
So maybe you can start there. Tell us about what, in your estimation, makes a great subcontractor when it comes to the bidding process.
Okay. But before I do that, just to kind of reiterate the importance of, the relationship between the general contractor and the subcontractor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been, I've heard this since I've been in business, and it's people always say, general contractor, they're only as good as their worst subcontractor.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's really true. I mean, it only takes, one group to really mess up a job or to delay a job or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's true.
And, here we're always talking about our reputation, and, we want to portray ourselves in a very professional manner,
Yeah.
a very organized manner. So a subcontractor can really hurt that. They can really,
unfortunately,
we can tell a client all these things about our company, and then
how great we are.
Connect with a subcontractor that don't perform.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we look like the company that was a failure. And obviously that's not what we're looking for, and that's not what we want. And I don't think that's anybody's goal. No. So it's important to have the right subs, that you're working with to make sure the project's a success.
Absolutely.
And like you said, today we'll talk about, in our mind, what makes a good subcontractor.
Yeah. Not just good, but great.
Great. Yes. Yes. So, to your point, the relationship starts in the bidding process or in the negotiating process.
For sure.
And both of those scenarios are a little bit different. I mean, we're talking about a bid job. We're usually talking about a public bid job. It goes at a certain deadline, and you have multiple subcontractors, bidding a scope of work that they're sending over to you. And to start off, what would make, or what we're looking for, and what we think, is a great subcontractor. We're looking for somebody that's going to send us a proposal.
Yeah. That's
very clear. It has the inclusions, the exclusions. There's always gray areas in scope. So make sure that, there's clarity on what exactly that proposal is.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it's as simple as saying, they're bidding according to plan and spec, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And that, we make the assumption at that point that they have everything in that cost code or whatever it is that they're bidding.
Mm-hmm.
But the important part of it is just make sure that it is clear. Make sure that proposal is something that we can take and we can understand without a bunch of phone calls back to the subcontractor.
Yeah.
What exactly that entails.
Yes.
The other side of it is timeliness. Like get us a proposal in enough time that we can take it in, we can decipher it.
Yeah.
If we do have questions and need to ask a question, make sure that we have time to do that.
Yes.
But mainly just get us your quotes in a clear manner, get them to us on time, and make sure they're accurate.
Yeah.
The last thing that we want to do is get a quote that we go secure a job with to find out that it's not accurate.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's the things that I would lean to, in pointing towards, a good subcontractor. Just, if you're doing all those things and you're being diligent, then you're gonna put a number out there that's solid, and that's what we need as a general contractor. We need to have a number that we have confidence in,
Yeah.
and then we also need to have it in a timely and clear manner so that we can get it plugged into our estimate and get our bid turned in on time.
Yeah.
So I think that's the major thing, in the beginning process.
Yeah.
And if there are questions, make sure make sure as a subcontractor, you're asking those questions not on bid day. Let's ask them in the, typically on a bid process, there's a window there that you can, you have to ask those questions. Make sure you've done your time and looked at the plans.
Yeah.
Have those questions prepared and asked
Submit
so that
your
we can get them
RFIs.
answered,
Yeah.
Prior to bid day.
Yeah.
Because the chances are, if you pick this thing up at bid day and you're asking us a bunch of questions, we're not going to have the clear answer that we really need.
No.
And at that point, we're not going to be able to go into this project with confidence.
That's right.
So just be prepared on bid day, get everything to us on time and in a clear manner. I think that automatically starts to put you in a category that's good.
Yeah, for sure.
Or great, as you say.
Great, yeah. So, all right. So let's say that bid day came and went. We won the bid. We've been awarded the job. So now we go into this next phase of this relationship with subcontractors, where this is the point where we're going to issue buyouts or contracts. We're going to request submittals. The submittals may include shop drawings, and then there's schedules to consider. So with all these different things they're happening now, each of those, the buyout, contract, submittals, and communicating about schedules and things like that. What makes a great subcontractor in your mind when it comes to this next step in this relationship?
Yeah. So, my mind was continuing to roll as you was asking that question. So I want to jump back to the first question just for a second.
Sure. Yeah.
We talked about bidding and negotiating.
Yeah.
In the negotiating phase, and what that would look like a lot of times is an owner comes to us.
Yeah, more like private side.
Yeah, they want to do a shop or whatever. Mm-hmm. And we start to build budget and we start to talk about the project.
Yeah.
A subcontractor that in our mind starts to be great is somebody that's willing to come in, help us with this project, give us some time in the beginning.
Yeah,
everybody's
make themselves available.
Essentially, everybody's working for free, like to try to get this job.
Sure.
But it's about us trying to build a relationship with that owner, and the sub confirming our relationship by showing up and putting forth a little effort in the beginning to try to help secure this project.
Shores up our position.
Yeah. So another good sign in kind of the negotiating phase is somebody that's willing to come in, give us a little time, give us some feedback, and even some budgetary numbers on a project, at no cost.
Yeah.
In the hopes of getting a job.
Yeah.
And now typically what that looks like, is once, we're not asking anybody to continue to do a bunch of free work, and we're not asking, we're not telling you you're good or bad based on how much free work you give us. Because typically in that scenario, once it turns to a job, we can look at some pre-construction costs and different stuff that, we make the owner aware of. But just willing to, to put forth some effort in a job that's not a job yet.
Yeah.
And try to help secure it. That really lends itself to somebody that wants to be a team player and looks to be a good subcontractor.
Definitely makes you stand out.
Yeah.
In our mind, and I'm sure in any general contractor's mind, that would be a huge plus.
Right.
For a sub to do that.
Yeah, but so to get back to your question, starts in the bid phase, and now we're moving to the production side.
Yeah.
And once you get under contract with a subcontractor, there's a lots of things that kick into gear. We need submittals, we need your projected schedule, we need your schedule of values, we need your submittals. There's a bunch of things that contract puts into gear.
Yeah.
And it's important to get those things rolling immediately. In my mind, even if you're a subcontractor that's not going to be on this project for 3 or 4 months, let's get these initial tasks taken care of.
Yes.
Submittals are huge.
Submittals
are something that can delay a job very quickly. We see it time and time again.
Yes.
So and they're not simple to put together. There's obviously some work for the subcontractor, their supplier, or their vendor. to get these things pieced together.
A little bit of legwork.
Yeah, you get them to us, and then we have to review them. We have to sign off on them, send them to the architect for their review, and then maybe an engineer if that's required.
Yeah.
So as you can see, it's quite a bit amount of time it takes to get these things turned around.
For sure.
On a long lead item or something like that, you would need to have this turned around plenty in advance.
Really
so
fast, yeah.
To me, a good sub jumps right on this kind of stuff and gets it taken care of, regardless of kind of where you fall out in the project.
Yeah.
Like let's get it taken care of. Let's get everything ordered.
Yeah.
Let's get it all coming. So just timeliness, like stay on top of it, make it happen quick. Schedule of values. I mean, we need subcontractor schedule of values to build our schedule of values, and we can't submit any kind of pay apps or anything like that until we have it. So keep that kind of thing in mind. Like we need this information as fast as we can get it, because the first day we're signing a contract, we're trying to submit a pay application for mobilization, for any other thing that our subs may need in advance or whatever. So like let this stuff be a priority. Don't let it kind of slip through the cracks, and don't celebrate the win, but don't start thinking about the project till a month down the road. Let's get all these items taken care of and get them knocked out, so that once the time comes, we're sitting on go.
Yeah, exactly. Get the paperwork behind you so you can roll.
Yeah, and again, we're probably talking about this in every phase, but communication is huge. Like once that contract is under, once you're under contract, like let's communicate with the PM. Let's tell them what the expectation is. Look, we can have you submittals in this amount of days. We'll have you schedule of values in this many days.
Yeah.
Just be clear on whatever their process is.
Yeah.
We're not asking them to change the process or anything like that. Let us know what the process is, so that we know we have an expectation.
Yeah.
I'm
sorry, go ahead.
I know a lot of times when we do submittals, like we'll give an expectation. We want this back in 14 days, or we want this back in 7 days.
Yeah.
And all of those items, schedule of value, we typically do that. But if you can't meet the timeline, or if that's not your process, just communicate to us what it is.
Yeah.
And more than likely, as long as it's not affecting the length of the project or anything like that, we're going to work together. We want to be a team. That's our whole goal. We talk about that continuously on our podcast.
Yeah.
And that's something we're very team oriented here and outside of that.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what makes a really good subcontractor in that phase.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges to project management is building a schedule. And a lot goes into it. You burn a lot of brain cells. I mean, what your overall number of days are for the project, but you have to make all the pieces fit inside of there. And that's not always easy. I mean, you really have to understand the project intimately. Like you have to kind of, as I know when I was building schedules, I had to build the project in my mind,
right,
to figure out how those are all going to fall into place. And so when a subcontractor has information about, well, I'm not going to have that gear for 6 weeks or whatever, and you don't communicate that, it really makes crafting a schedule difficult. But if you just communicate that, then the PM, the first schedule is always a rough draft.
Yeah.
This is what we'd like to see happen. But you send that out, and at that point, as a subcontractor, check the schedule out. Let us know, is this realistic? Does this look like this would work for you?
Right.
And if not, why? And then what would work for you?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, we call it our preliminary schedule. We build it on our own based on experience and based on the other jobs that we've done.
Yeah.
We send it out to our subs. And to your point, like really review it. Like give us some real world feedback and let us know that, hey, this window's not going to happen. Like we can't do it that fast, or if it's too much time, let us know, because schedule's critical.
Sure is.
So if we get you that preliminary schedule, like give us some real feedback. Like read it, check it out, let us know. And that's another good sign. Like if we get some real feedback in the beginning, we're all of a sudden way more confident in the sub and the project actually happened like it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So all that goes a long way. And again, it kind of gets back to communication, but that's just an example of somewhere that clear communication is going to go a long way.
Yeah. Something to think about as subcontractors, if you're watching this and you are subcontractors, that we know that your segment of the project, you might be able to shift that, left or right in any place inside of the overall envelope of the time for the project, but we have to be completed by that end date.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're penalized. So you sliding it down the line just because you're not being, I guess, responsive
Yeah.
with all the different things that we need from you, submittals and shop drawings, things like that, then it can push our end date, and that does a couple things to us. Well, first of all, our estimate is based on that timeline.
Right.
So our profitability is based on that number of days.
Right.
If we go past that, even if there's no penalty necessarily other than days are extended, we still are losing money,
Right.
technically.
That's right.
So you can do us a solid by making sure that, you can, one, like you said, give us feedback on the schedule, and then two, make sure that your stuff is submitted in a timely manner so that our schedule is not getting pushed.
Yeah.
It may not affect your schedule really, but it's sure going to affect ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And two, even for just subs that aren't critical path. I mean,
Yeah.
It's easy. Seems like it's a little easier for those guys to kind of let some stuff sit and delay or whatever.
Yeah. Put it
But
on the back burner.
That needs to be a priority too, because once we're finished with the job, we don't want to be coming back for signage or maybe some bathroom accessories or something that
all those little loose ends
they can operate without, and it end up slipping through the crack because it just you can finish the job basically without it.
Yeah.
Like, just get those items done on time and get them all submitted, and let's get them here on time so we can get this project finished and get it done on time.
Right. All right, great. So we've talked about getting quotes, what makes a great subcontractor when it comes to the quoting process and the bidding process. We've talked about, now we've awarded a contract, and we're getting submittals and shop drawings and schedules set, and you've gave us some insight into what really makes it work for us as a general contractor, what makes our life easier. So now we're on the job. Let's say we're on the job. Now we got a whole nother layer of issues that come up. You got, the issue of manpower, on-site supervision, materials being correct and confirmed, and all those different things. So tell us about, in your mind as a general contractor, what makes you smile when it comes to a subcontractor, as far as how they conduct themselves on the job and take care of business. What makes them seem great to you when it comes to all these things?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is, by the time you get to the job and you have a crew, you've worked with multiple different people at this point. You've worked with an estimator, you've worked with a project manager or whoever, and now you're working with a site supervisor and their team.
Yeah.
So the first thing that's really nice is when you get a crew there that knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, they've communicated all the way down the line at their company.
Yes.
And you have somebody that understands the project. They know what the expectation is. They're not there the first day trying to figure everything out.
Exactly.
That's a huge win for our superintendents.
Very refreshing, yeah.
and our PMs.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. To see that you guys have been organized enough to pass this thing down from the bidding process to the in-field production process.
Yes.
And have communicated all this information and have a crew that's there ready to work.
Yeah.
That's a big win.
Huge.
Shining pretty bright.
That's right.
The other part is, we've alluded to schedule and how we build schedules and how we get the feedback, is be at the job on time. If we have a date that you're supposed to be there, be there.
Yeah.
I mean, we've spent time in our office. You've spent time in your office confirming that the date's good, confirming that the time frame's good.
Yeah.
Make sure you hit your date. Make sure you're there on time, because that's our expectation.
It's a commitment.
And we talk about communication. So there's a high chance we've communicated to the owner or the client that ABC Plumbing or CDEF mechanical
Yeah.
is on site this day.
Yeah.
So when you're not there, all of a sudden it don't look like maybe we don't have control of the project or whatever it is. We look like the bad guy.
Not a good look.
So make sure that you're there on time. Make sure that you're going to be on that date that you're on the schedule for.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah.
And if you're not, let's go back to communication. Let's clearly communicate it plenty in advance.
Yeah.
That you're not going to be there. Don't know that you're not going to be there, and don't tell us to that day.
Yeah.
Like, we understand that stuff happens. We understand that other jobs run a little long or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like, get that communicated to us so that we can communicate that to our owner.
That's right.
Because we have people in our office. That's what they're doing. They're telling the owner every week what the plan is and what's going to happen next week.
Yeah.
So when it don't go as executed, then all of a sudden we're not the bright shining star that we want to be.
That's right.
To the owner.
Yeah, we're going to submit that weekly progress report, and we want it to show progress.
Right, exactly. And then, once you do have your team there, make sure you have enough men. I mean, don't send 2 men for a 6-man job and act like it's going to make the schedule, because it's probably not.
Yeah.
And make sure that the crew that you send are capable of doing the work. Make sure that you have some skilled guys there.
Yeah.
One thing that happens occasionally or from time to time is a subcontractor struggling to make it to the job and to struggling to hit our schedule. So they just send a couple of warm bodies over there that essentially they're not really prepared to do the job.
Yeah.
But they can send them there and have a little crew there that's not costing a bunch of money because maybe they're helpers or whatever.
Yeah.
But they don't know what they're doing.
They're not skilled craftsmen. They're to execute. And
then on top of that, I can't tell you how many times we've gotten a crew over there that really don't have a supervisor.
Yes.
There's nobody, there's not a leader to turn to. So our superintendent ends up running a crew, which takes away from all the responsibilities that we're expecting to do on our side.
Yeah, he has responsibilities there for us.
And then that's just not a good look. So, I mean, in my mind, once you hit the job site, if you want to be, in our mind, a great subcontractor, then you have to know the scope. Your team has to know what they're there to do. They have to be prepared to do the job without figuring it out for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
You have to have a supervisor that your team can answer to, that can clearly keep them in order.
Yes.
Have enough manpower and have competent manpower.
Yeah.
I think all those things are huge, and in our mind are going to go a long way in us, in our mind, grading how good or bad these subcontractors are.
Yeah. Do you have any challenges with communication on the site that you've had to deal with that you want to talk about?
I mean, it's nice. It's obviously in today's climate, or whatever you want to call it. We do have a lot of guys that don't speak English on the job sites. And I mean, I think that's widely accepted now, and that's fine. And there's a lot of very skilled guys that don't speak English and can get out there and get the job done. Mm-hmm. But you got to make sure we can communicate with them. You got to make sure that, you can understand what's being said, understand direction given.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you have a way of communicating with a superintendent who may not be bilingual or may not, speak other languages. So I mean, I think that's important too. And that goes back to, having that good supervisor there that can keep everything lined up.
Exactly.
In my mind, if you have a crew that don't necessarily speak English, then, you have a supervisor who can communicate in both languages or whatever,
Yeah, that would be a requirement for sure if you want to be a great subcontractor.
Yeah.
All right, so
you might be trying to get us kicked off YouTube with that. Just kidding.
I doubt it. All right, so we're going through these layers. We're working through there, and we're on the job now. So inevitably, no matter how great the subcontractor is, and how great the project is, problems arise. There's always these gray areas that show up in the scope that kind of, they're like a splinter. They don't really show up till they fester a little bit. It takes a minute. And then there's some other areas, kind of along with the gray area thing, where there's issues with materials being sourced, long lead items, could be huge quantities of certain materials, that have to be purchased ahead of time, well, far before any time, someone can submit a pay app to get paid for them, things like that. Maybe you could talk about some of these, probably what become some of the more serious challenges to getting the project completed, and what your expectation is with these things.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I think about in those situations is specifically like the gray areas. Uh, in my mind, what makes a good subcontractor, I just want to find somebody that's going to work, in fairness, with just fairness like front of mind.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of these situations, the general contractor and the sub are likely going to have some kind of undue expense. And it's always nice, specifically if it's a gray area that leans toward a certain cost code or whatever. It's always nice for our sub to kind of step up and say, you know what, maybe we missed that, or that's not something that we typically do, but we can see how you guys assume that we would.
Yeah.
Maybe we come together, and if it's a $6,000 or $7,000 item, maybe we just kind of split it down the middle.
Yeah.
In my mind, when they're working in fairness like that, that really nobody wants to take a loss on a project. We don't want to take a loss. They don't want to take a loss. We're not asking anybody to take a loss, but when you can see the big picture and you can just say, you know what, we feel like this is what's fair.
Yeah.
I feel like we're very good at doing that.
Yes.
And if a subcontractor can do that, then we feel we really get kind of a warm fuzzy feeling about that particular subcontractor.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I would just say, working in fairness in those areas that are gray goes a long way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've had the scenario where the subcontractor just absolutely wouldn't take any responsibility for it.
Yeah, that's
and just
rough.
Stuck us with it.
Yeah.
And we might have felt just as strongly that they should have done it, but it's not worth a big dispute.
Yeah.
So we probably in most cases would just take our lick and keep moving.
Yeah.
But it's always nice to have a subcontractor that will own up if they did make a mistake.
Yeah.
And we've had that to where the sub said, you know what, it was our job and we totally missed it.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to take it.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that. And we, I can assure you we're working with them again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So just working fairness in gray areas, and that's going to go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of other things that come to mind, the long lead items and stuff.
Yeah.
Even the, money challenges. I mean, we understand, we understand the business that we're in, and we understand that there, from time to time, there are challenges with money, specifically there's items sometimes that need to be on a job site that may have to be paid in advance.
Yeah.
And as a subcontractor, it may be a place that you don't have an account with, or whatever the case, you may need a large sum of money up front to help get some material secured so they can get to the job site.
Yeah.
Like, communicate that with us. Like,
exactly.
Don't keep trying to figure out a way to pull together the funds or whatever it takes to get that material on a job site. Don't do that 2 weeks until you need it and the project's 6 weeks out.
Exactly.
Well, I know recently we actually had that on a job to where we end up just telling the subcontractor, look, like, just let us know. We actually just went and bought the material, had it sent to the job site, and the project was delayed a week or two, and it didn't have to be. Like, with a little bit of communication, we would have been able to get that material on the job site on time. Yeah. And we don't necessarily have a bad feeling about that contractor. We understand that, I think in this case, the material, they didn't have an account there. It was a new supplier.
New vendor,
and we were able to help get it ironed out. But, like, let us know that kind of stuff in advance.
Yeah.
And we're going to help when we can and figure out a path forward,
Yeah. Subcontractors need to understand that we're a management company as a general contractor, and we're here to manage situations like that.
Yeah.
So, let us manage it, communicate it.
And the other thing, in regards to money too, is like, we've had this, at some point too, is where we have a vendor calling us that, one of our subcontractors owes some money and they're not going to send a job. They're not going to send material to the job
Yeah.
site or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, just don't let us find that out from a supplier or vendor.
Yeah. That's
like
a bad look.
Give us plenty of notification that, hey, whatever it is. I mean, money gets tight here. We understand that there's times where money's tight.
That's why they call it working capital, because it's a thing.
Yeah, it might have been, they might be getting slow paid on 2 or 3 other jobs.
That's right.
So
it'd be out of their control.
In our mind, we're not thinking that, hey, these guys are a bad subcontractor because, they have a bill that's owed.
We know the industry, yeah.
Just let us know that that's the case so that when we do get the call, we're not blindsided. Exactly. Because guess what? When we're blindsided, now we are worried and now we are concerned.
Yes.
If a subcontractor calls and says, man, look, I'm trying to get my brick on the job. However, the last 2 jobs I'm on are really slow paying. I need to catch them up.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, if that guy calls us, we already aware and we're not really concerned. This guy's been very open with us and told us what the scenario is.
Yeah.
But if that vendor calls us, now I'm not going to say panic, but we're probably panicked. Like, what's going on? Like, why?
Yeah. Why am I just hearing about this?
Yeah. So, that's the kind of stuff in the gray areas, and that's really not a gray area, but it can be gray if we don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Is just work out a fairness, and then in those material and cash flow situations, just communicate. Again, we're back to communication.
Yeah.
But just communicate that stuff. Be upfront about it. Don't let us be surprised by any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And all that just builds confidence in our relationship, and it builds confidence for us in that subcontractor when they're keeping us in the know and keeping us in the loop on what's going on.
Yeah.
So I think that's how I would kind of sum that up.
Yeah. It reminds me of that saying that frustration begins where knowledge ends. So if you don't know,
right,
because you're not being communicated with, then you can become very frustrated when you're finding out last minute that there's this problem that we could have resolved a week ago or 2 weeks ago had we just known.
Right.
So be a team player and communicate. That's probably the most valuable thing you can do.
Right. We could have just said that instead of doing this whole show.
Probably so. That's a wrap.
Yeah.
All right. So I think you've given us a lot of great insight into what the expectations are for a subcontractor to be looked at as a great subcontractor. Sounds like one of the primary things is just being a great communicator and having integrity.
Right. I mean, you got to be able to perform, but the reality is most people can perform, specifically they're not overloaded and they're not stretched out.
Yeah.
But what really kind of
differentiator.
Yeah, it's just.
Did I say that right?
Yeah, you said it right. It didn't roll off your tongue perfect, but yes, you said it right.
Yeah. The difference maker
is really that communication and that organization and that just really having everything in the palm of your hand and controlling it. So
yeah. Being engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So does that wrap it up?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully we gave some good information. Just like most of the stuff we talk about, I think we could probably really dive into a lot more details, but I think we gave a very good overview of I guess what our expectation is.
Yeah.
So hopefully some good information can be used.
Sure, absolutely. Well, hey, we appreciate you joining us again this week. Hope you enjoyed it. We certainly did. We like these opportunities to get together and talk about the industry that we're passionate about. This is how we all feed our families and finance our lives, I guess. So it's something that we want to enjoy doing, and part of that is getting to talk to y'all and hopefully build this online community. And we want this to serve as a feedback loop. If you're watching this on YouTube, there is a comments feature. Feel free to shoot us a comment if you got a thought about the subject that we're talking about and you've listened to it. Don't be shy. Jump on the comments and give us a comment. We'd love to get some feedback from y'all. And we appreciate you watching. Please subscribe. It makes a huge difference. As the subscriber percentage goes up, it's not the count necessarily, but the percentage of people watching. If those people are actually subscribed, it tells YouTube that people are caring about the content, and they'll push it out to more people. And we want to get the information out there to as many people as possible, because, like I said, we want to build this online community around commercial construction here in the greater Baton Rouge area. And I think it's something that's really, I mean, it's pivotal to life. Everything has to be built,
Right.
and so it's just one of those industries that touches a lot of different other businesses and industries, and touches everybody's life. So we all live in a built environment, if you get right down to it, and work in a built environment. So uh, that's why we're passionate about it, I think. So, anyways, come back, see us next week. I've rambled on enough, and I think this guy has too, for sure. So
I was just about to tell him you gave him all that for free.
yeah, that was all free of charge. And you know what it's worth when it's free. So, anyways, have a great rest of your week. Thanks for tuning in. Adios.
Adios.